everyone. My name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all, and today we're going to talk about NRE, or New Relationship Energy. If you're part of the non-monogamous world, or even if you've only read some of the most popular literature about polyamory, you've probably heard of this term before. But even if you're not poly yourself, it can impact people of all different relationship styles. Whether you're monogamous or poly, vanilla or kinky, it's an important thing to know about. So let's discuss what NRE is, where it all comes from, how it compares to things like Limerence, and how to keep it from destroying you and your relationships while still honoring the honest feelings you may have about an exciting new connection you're still exploring. And I think the best way to explain what NRE is through example. Even if you've never experienced it before yourself, you probably have a friend or family member who has. Like, have you ever had a friend who matched with a hot guy in a dating app, or met someone that they were super into at a bar, and after talking for a couple of days, they set up a first date, and then after that first date goes well, they are non-stop gushing about this new person, and suddenly they can't stop talking about them, and they keep making plans with this new person, and it seems like their whole world gets recentered around this new guy or gal or NB. They might have even suddenly been motivated to do new things, like sharing in their new sweetie's favorite hobbies that they've never previously shown any interest in. Or they might have more energy for personal projects they didn't have before, like getting motivated to organize their apartment or committing to go to the gym more often. It's not always a bad thing, but for those on the outside of this experience, it can be annoying, basically. Like, oh yeah, every single time my friend has a new boyfriend, she suddenly drops off of the face of the earth for a while, only to pop back up a couple months later like nothing happened. That focus and heightened emotional state is what we call new relationship energy. It's a temporary state that arises at the start of a relationship, which can last anywhere from a couple of weeks to a year or two, during which we wear rose-colored glasses about our new connection. And while this term is typically associated with romantic and sexual connections, it can also happen in non-sexual and kinky relationships too, which means it's something that asexual and aromantic folk can experience as well. I would go so far as to say that any new attachment forming between two human beings can potentially lead to NRE, and because we are a species that thrives on social connection, it makes sense that we would experience some major like heck yes, keep this going signals from our brain when a promising new attachment starts to form. The endorphin rush an emerging relationship can bring on is a beautiful thing. It can bring new joy to our lives, it can give us a new way of being excited about the future, and it floods us with positive feelings. But if you go into NRE unconsciously, no matter what relationship it's attached to, it can wreak havoc on your life. And if you are polyamorous, and this is about a new romantic or sexual connection, it could definitely impact your other relationships as well. And this is doubly the case with kink relationships, especially ones that are also non-monogamous. You all have heard me talk about subfrenzy a million times now, I am sure. It is that feeling that newer S-types get when they first enter into the scene, where they basically want to say yes to as many experiences as possible, often against their better judgment. And because they don't know what they don't know yet, they might not always be able to discern who's a safe and honest player during this stage. It's sort of like having NRE, but for kink itself as a concept rather than towards individual people. And what happens when you put subfrenzy and NRE together? An absolute tidal wave of intense, positive feelings that might make it seem like you should be charging full speed ahead when you really ought to be doing anything but that. And don't misunderstand me, this is not just a problem for new S-types. Though we don't talk about it as much because newer doms and tops typically have less access to potential partners, D-types can and do also experience their own version of frenzy and end up in just as bad of a pickle as their newbie S-type counterparts. But subfrenzy tends to be the more common term, and more people use it even as a catch-all, even for folks that don't necessarily identify as submissives. We can also just call it frenzy though, just FYI. But unfortunately, there's no clear-cut way to prevent either frenzy or NRE from happening at all. Our brains want to reward us for finding new social groups and making new connections, and overriding that process entirely is probably a losing battle. However, there are ways to mitigate it and help keep it on track while still acknowledging your legitimate and real feelings. I think that's important to keep in mind. Some people try to minimize what they're experiencing in an attempt to be able to control it. They believe that by telling themselves that what they're going through isn't real, they're going to be able to get through it more easily. However, that can actually exacerbate the problem. By ignoring or denying or trying to minimize feelings, they often become stronger, not weaker. I mean, think about it. When was the last time somebody told you, stop crying, or it's not a big deal, and that really worked, especially long term? When we tell ourselves our feelings can't be real, they're often going to try harder to be noticed, which then makes the problem worse. Instead, I think what's better to do is to gently just acknowledge them without acting immediately on any particular urge that those emotions might suggest. If we're feeling really happy, we might want to rush and spend as much time as possible with the source of our happiness, to the exclusion of other people even. But we don't have to do that. We get to choose our actions. We can recognize and sit with the sensation of joy in our bodies and instead say, hey, that might make me really happy, but what would also make me really happy too? Finishing the book I've been reading, going outside with my dog, and spending time with my friends. Let's not forget to make time for those things as well. If this happiness is meant to last, it's not going to go away if I don't spend every single last second with them. So step one is just, again, gently acknowledging those feelings without letting them totally dictate our actions. Step 2, which really honestly could be step 0, is to set boundaries with ourselves before we enter a new connection. This isn't always possible. Obviously, sometimes just new relationships begin to happen and we don't really see them coming. But if you're looking for dates or new play partners or friends, I recommend doing this step like ASAP. Get off the app, take a night to do this, okay? And what this looks like is making an agreement with yourself ahead of time about how you want to spend your time, what level of communication you want, and how quickly you want that connection to progress. If you don't decide on that until you've already started forming a connection, you are more liable to go quickly and compromise other relationships or your time and respect for yourself to make room for this new person. And while that might feel good in the moment, it can lead to long-term harm. One big mistake people make is not prioritizing their existing connections. They take it for granted that those people will still be there, even if they suddenly peace out for a few weeks or months to soak up all those good NRE feelings with someone else. This is one reason why new relationships can be threatening to existing partners in polyamory. There is a kind of real threat, without intentional agreements to the contrary, that your partner might just decide to now spend all of their time with their new shiny in their life. But it doesn't have to be just with romantic relationships. It can happen with friends and play partners too. If you drop going to your weekly knitting circle or card night, if your dance card at the dungeon is suddenly filled by one VIP every weekend, you can't expect people are going to stick around and maintain those connections for you. So don't neglect your other relationships just to satisfy a new one. No one likes a fair weather friend who only comes around when they're single and can't be trusted to keep their commitments once a new crush comes along. The right person isn't going to be scared off by you wanting to spend time with other people. In fact, they probably should be encouraging you to keep those connections. They should want you to be around other people who make you happy. They should want you to share your joy and time with others. Someone who tries to exclusively monopolize all your time right from the start, in my opinion, is a walking red flag, because external social connections not only keep us happy, they help keep us safe, and they can be critical sounding boards that will alert us to bad behavior we may miss with our rose-colored glasses still on. And as the saying goes, Distance makes the heart grow fonder. By spending time apart, you might actually be extending the time. You get to stay in this fluffy, gushy, head over heels space, while also getting much needed room to evaluate someone's behavior rationally. And that brings me to step 3, which is checking in with your support network and observing how someone's words align with their actions. As I've been saying, new relationships can make us blind to a person's flaws. Sometimes this is as innocent as the fact that they're not great at choosing what to get for dinner and tend to waffle for 30 minutes every single time you go out, but it can also cause us to overlook things that could have actual real consequences, such as possessiveness, entitlement, and insecurity. When we pace ourselves in a new relationship and consult our support network, such as a therapist or close friends, we can see more clearly where the lines are. Are they genuinely concerned for your safety, or are they trying to establish a foothold of control? Do they have an understandable amount of humility, or a level of insecurity that does not bode well for future relationship stability if you want to be polyamorous? Do they tell you one thing about themselves and act another way? Are their words and actions generally things that go together? One of the best pieces of advice I have ever received for dating is this: when someone's words don't match their actions, go with their actions. People can tell you until they are blue in the face, like a salesperson, what their values are, what they want from a relationship, and how they will behave. They might even believe what they tell you, but if those things do not match what they do, they are either intentionally deceitful or have a worrying lack of self-insight, or you might just be so out of sync with each other that you're not on the same page about what those words and things even mean, and that also isn't going to work for a relationship, whether it's for friendship, kink, or otherwise. And finally, step 4 is to keep everything in perspective. Everything in life eventually comes to an end, even those really super good, amazing new person feelings. We can be aware and present in the moment of those feelings and sit with them consciously. But we should be cautious about making big life choices based on them alone. I would recommend at least 6 months before deciding to move in with someone or entering into a total power exchange relationship with them. A year plus, or even like 2 years, is probably better if you can manage it. Otherwise, what you're doing is committing to the idea of a person, again, that sales persona they have given you, rather than who they really are, beyond whatever best foot that they're currently putting forward. When you're still getting to know someone, your brain is going to be filling in a lot of blanks, creating a sense of hope that can be extremely alluring. But until you really know someone and not just your idea of them, you can't be certain that a long-term commitment will be the healthiest thing for either of you. Again, if this is the right person, waiting a little bit longer won't be the end of the world. And if it's the wrong person, waiting might just make the whole thing crumble to pieces before it has a chance to drag you in deeper and make the pain worse. And remember too that anyone can experience NRE, just like anyone can experience frenzy. It doesn't matter if you've been dating for 20 years, if you do a ton of pickup play, or if you are pathologically independent. Don't let that experience lull you into a false sense of security. Believing you will be immune to these feelings and tendencies because of whatever reason only makes you more liable to get swept up into them, totally unaware of how it could be impacting your life and other relationships. Another thing to consider is, are you experiencing limerence or are you experiencing NRE? The confusing answer is, you might end up experiencing both. Limerence is an interesting term. Unlike NRE, which is an informal term that grew in popularity from its use in the 1990s on email lists about polyamory, limerence is originally a scientific term. It was invented by psychologist Dorothy Tanoff in the 1960s and 70s. It was coined in order to describe a particularly profound, intense emotional state arising from attachment development. While it was not originally described in strictly negative terms, it was actually often compared to being madly in love. In the intervening decades, continued research on limerence has begun to give the term a negative connotation. One component of limerence that separates it from NRE is that limerence typically arises from an unfulfilled, uncertain, or one-sided connection. It is fueled by a lack of consistent reciprocity and the unknown, whereas NRE grows the more we get to know someone and the more mutual desire is stated. The uncertainty of limerence is part of what can make it so intense. Our brains do not like being in an uncertain state, and this can lead to obsessive, swinging emotions. Intermittent reinforcement can create and perpetuate this, and if you haven't heard of that before, I will do a brief aside to explain. If you say, give a rat a peanut every single time they press a button, they will actually be less motivated than if you give them a peanut a random amount of time that they press the button. An intermittent reinforcement schedule takes more time to wear off or to go extinct than a continuous reinforcement schedule. When applied to human relationships, this can result in obsessive behavior and intense feelings. This is, by the way, what a lot of manipulative people and red pillers take advantage of when trying to, as they would say, win the dating game and get back at women. Yeah, if someone is only nice to you some of the time, only complimentary some of the time, and you can't figure out rhyme or reason to it, you are more likely to keep trying to get back to those states in the relationship, whereas if they were just always rude or dismissive, you would probably just dump them immediately. So look out for that kind of behavior. But the state of limerence is not only produced by intentional intermittent reinforcement. It can also arise totally unintentionally without either party being consciously aware of why it started. The intermittent reinforcement that may keep it going can be as slight as something like a smile occasionally or feeling noticed by the limerent object. Did you ever have an experience in like middle school where a friend knew you liked somebody and they would go, oh my god, they totally noticed you, and that would keep you on like cloud nine for the rest of the day? Limerence is basically like that. You may have also noticed that this resembles some theories about substance addiction too. So it's no wonder that limerence gets a bad rap when you can draw parallels between it and slot machines and sports betting. And because limerence relies on staying stuck in a place of uncertainty, that can lead to very high highs, like that cloud nine feeling, but also very low lows, like feeling despondent that your desires will never be realized. NRE, because it's based on getting to know someone, becomes deeper when you're certain of the mutuality of the connection and are excited about where it could lead to next, and usually does not have any profound negative emotions associated with it, other than maybe perhaps the fear that you could disturb your other existing relationships or something along those lines. Both limerence and NRE are temporary though. Limerence goes away either when our secret feelings are revealed or when we finally have clarity about the potential of a connection with someone. This can be sudden, especially when we either confess something that was previously hidden or have those emotions found out. NRE also tends to fade, but it's typically more gradual. As we move from hoping about a promising potential with someone who likes us back and into a steady day-to-day relationship flow where we know someone deeply, those fuzzy, buzzy, high-energy feelings tend to give way to more mature, secure, steady, positive emotions. This can lead us into a place called old relationship energy, which NRE was coined to be a counterpart to. Hopefully, all of this makes the differences between limerence and NRE clear. Limerence is a volatile state based on unfulfilled, unreciprocated attraction, whereas NRE is a steady, excited state based on a mutual, growing attachment and the hope we have for the future. Limerence and NRE can flow together, though. Sometimes we may be admiring someone from afar, only to become obsessed with the idea of having a relationship with them. We may project feelings onto them, but be uncertain about how they feel about us, and we end up waffling between euphoria and despair as a result. But if we screw up the courage to confess how we feel and we find our desires are mutual, there may be a time period in which the remains of limerence feed into the start of new relationship energy. And this is a great argument for why it's important to talk to someone about how you feel about them. While the high highs of limerence are awesome, the lows suck. And it could also be keeping you from sustainable, amazing feelings that you could get with NRE. Fear is what keeps limerence going. We may worry about knowing the truth, counting on the worst possible outcome, but limerence is likely to end more painfully the longer it goes on for. The longer we've been gambling, the deeper the debt we'll need to pay, right? But there is eventually some relief. The heartbreak does end, even if it sucks in the moment or for weeks or months afterwards. And even if there's no overt heartbreak, it's still blocking us from experiencing all the unique ways new relationships can enrich our lives, whether it be with the object of our limerence or a different person who might actually reciprocate our desires. But how to deal with that heartbreak is a topic worthy of a separate video because it's a big one. So in summary, new relationship energy can be an intoxicating, if temporary experience. By being aware of NRE, we can set ourselves up for success by allowing ourselves space to safely enjoy all those new relationship feels without compromising either our values or other connections. We should also be careful to monitor our emotional state whenever attachments begin to develop, because a limerence can creep in and feed off our doubts and unrequited feelings. But by being brave, we can stop the cycle of limerence and either face that pain of heartbreak before it becomes insurmountable, or give ourselves the opportunity to feel the joy that comes with getting to have a budding new attachment. And that is more or less what I wanted to say about NRE and limerence. I think this is something we should definitely be talking about more, especially in the kink world. I don't know why it hasn't really crossed over into the kink lexicon, at least from what I've seen, when there is so much overlap with non-monogamy and polyamory and kink, at least in the public community. And yeah, because whether you're a new dom, a new sub, kink curious, when you're dealing with being new to kink and then also new relationship stuff on top of that, that can lead you to make some very sudden choices that I'm gonna, again, softly advise you all not to do. And maybe I can make a whole other video where I just talk about examples of, hey, if somebody proposes this to you and you've known them for 2 months, probably don't do that, even if it feels really good. Like, if you're deep into subfrenzy, if you maybe have even gone through subspace with this person a couple of times, if you're a new relationship energy and they're like, come live in my basement, or move across the country and quit your job to stay with me, that's gonna be a no. That's a red flag. I don't care how good the relationship feels and how mutual it is. Gotta pace yourself. But again, that's a conversation for another time. Thank you all so much for watching. If you are monogamous, I'd love to hear if you knew anything about this term beforehand. And if you're polyamorous, how do you cope with new relationship energy? Do you just like dive right in and let it be what it is? Do you try to pace yourself? What's your technique for dealing with it? And are you someone who's like really into NRE? Because I have heard too that there are people out there who love the feeling of NRE and that's what they want from polyamory. And then when they get to the end of that feeling, then they typically cut off relationships or minimize them and then go back and try to find more new partners. And that's also a behavior that I'm not fond of, because then you're just sort of treating people as like, with maybe not even realizing it, as like emotion fulfilling machines, where it's like, ah yes, give me good happy feelings as one very specific type, and oh, now this relationship's more mature, so I'm gonna go find another new person to get those intense new feelings with. But anyways, again, multiple other conversations could be had as a result of just this one. But anyways, please let me know your thoughts and feelings in a comment down below. If you did enjoy this, you're not already, please do subscribe, because I make videos twice a week about all different kink and BDSM related subjects. And finally, if you want to support what I do, the best news with Patreon, link to that will be down below. If you do already support me there, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you all next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.